guys, this is my updated Kozmo list for Dimensions of Chaos. I managed to get everything I wanted for this deck. This is completely not I haven't cut any corners on this build. I've gone all out and I got the entire deck. So this is exactly how I want to build the deck at the moment, but a few changes which I will go through. I got this deck and immediately entered a side event without even testing. I had a slightly janky build because I had just thrown in the Dark Destroyers as soon as I got them. And I immediately won a box against mirrors. It was an atrocious box, but it was still pretty impressive that I just picked up the deck. This deck is extremely powerful, and I'm really enjoying it basically because I play so many combo decks, and this takes some skill, but on the whole, it's pretty much just aggro, aggro, aggro. So anyway, I'm gonna get started. I run one Strawman. The reason I run one is because it's an e-tele target, it's searchable, I barely ever want to open it. I think the main thing I've gone with this build is I want to have the strongest opening hands for the most damage, and that's why I way rather run low on the smaller monsters and kind of cards like Reasoning, so I can immediately start pushing on the damage, because the small monsters are basically just your gateway to the bigger ones. So if you can get out the bigger ones quickly, you know, I'd always rather do that. 3 Farm Girl. This is a ridiculous card still. I'm not running Honest anymore, but I still managed to get through so much damage with this card and get so many searches off, which obviously is the main idea of the deck. 1 Good Witch, 1 Wicked Witch. Wicked Witch is really, really good, and it's amazing just for turtling and making your life points back with a Forerunner or whatever, the amount that you've paid. But I generally think if you're stalling, you're not fast enough, you're not making enough of a push. So I'm only running 1 and 1. Good Witch I think is really, really nice in a lot of ways. It's really nice in the Burning Abyss matchup, even though you probably shouldn't have that much difficulty with it. I always find that if my opponent can make F0, you're having a really hard time getting over that, but usually I can just Good Witch book it and then Regeki, pop with Dark Destroyer, etc, etc. 3 Slip Rider. I actually am not too sure about 3 of this card, however it's really nice being able to hit it off Reasoning when my opponent is inevitably going to call 8 for the Dark Destroyer, and it's really nice for making the 5s and the Pleiades, and eventually I will be making the Novas with this level 5 machine. This has really nice consistency with Cyber Dragon, which is just another 5, which is a free 5. 1 Dogfighter, I think this is really important for the mirror. One thing, I wasn't actually too enthusiastic about this card until I started playing the mirror, and I realized how important it was to be able to put this in defense mode at 2400 and my opponent's Slip Rider not be able to get over it. And it seems insignificant, but when you're actually in the mirror and everyone's running 3 Slip Rider, it comes up quite a lot. And I also like to just be able to cycle through more for this and then be able to make aggression plays next turn. And then I've got 3 Forerunner. Hitting this off the Reasoning is just the best thing, so I think a 3 of is really important, and you always want to be able to get it through Dark Destroyer. If you're not opening Destroyer and a small monster, opening Forerunner and a small monster is almost as good. So and then obviously the big boy, Dark Destroyer. I can see why this card is so expensive. This card opens up ridiculous amounts of OTKs. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. It's so powerful just because you can pop your own cards. You can even pop itself. You can cycle through in the battle phase. If you've got this and another ship, you are climbing up, you can climb up through your monsters into a Dark Destroyer and another ship, even another Dark Destroyer, pop the other Dark Destroyer, make a Forerunner, and then just keep attacking. Like, it puts on so much damage. I didn't realize how ridiculous this would be until I got into a situation where my opponent didn't have many pieces on board, and I could just immediately make the OTK without even thinking about it. And then 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. This is so important in the mirror. I was actually in the mirror and I hit Cyber Dragon off a Reasoning when he called 4 for some reason. I wasn't really sure. I think he thought I had run out of Dark Destroyers or something. Yeah, I hit the Cyber Dragon and he had like a Forerunner and he just scooped. Like, it was so funny. This Cyber Dragon has done so much for me. I think in main, it's barely ever dead. Like, it just pushes for damage if you're not against the mirror, and against the mirror is ludicrous. So honestly, I don't see why you wouldn't be running this in the main. Unless you knew for sure, like, there was no one at your locals with Kozmo or something like that. Spells, 3 Cosmotown. I still think running 3 is so important. I'm not too big on the whole running 2 and a Terraforming a chicken game or whatever. I still think this is really nice, and I think especially 3 because you're running Reasoning and some of them might go to grave. You just still need as many as possible in the deck. And also with just, you want to be able to get back that Dark Destroyer, and kind of Strawman's kind of made it less important to be paying, but still, I think it is really important. 3 E-Telly, I still want to be getting out that Strawman as soon as possible, and I want to be getting out that, well, toolboxing for the Strawman, and I also want to be toolboxing for the Farm Girl. What's really nice about E-Telly now is that we have, it's kind of more useful in a turn, because we have 2 targets now, which means we can banish them both, as opposed to going for 2 Farm Girl and only being able to use one of them for banishing for a bigger ship. So that's really nice. 3 Reasoning. Reasoning I think is ridiculous in this deck, and anyone that disagrees, fair enough, but honestly it's just a way better aggression card than most of what people are running as in smaller monsters. Basically this card makes your opening hands not dead despite you running a lot of big ships. I've just never had a dead hand with this deck, honestly, or any that hasn't been solved by 1 turn waiting out, which is fair enough, like everyone's gonna open dead sometimes, but Reasoning is like an instant out to that unless you're incredibly unfortunate and you hit Dark Destroyer. But if you can time this properly, it's pretty much always gonna go through. And then we just got some removal. I still think Double Dark Hole is really nice because you can have a big ship on board. You can have an opponent's problem card. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if you Dark Hole, it's going to get rid of things like, usually get rid of things like vanities that are really slowing you down or stopping you. It's also removal just for if you want to get out a Slip Rider for your opponent's back row, or for any problem field spell or whatever, etc. There's always a situation where you're going to need to get out Slip Rider and pop something, and Dark Hole is perfect access to that. And a Regeki because it's a ridiculous OTK card which probably shouldn't even be in the game. And one Forbidden Lance. Forbidden Lance just lets you attack through with your Farm Girl, and it also protects your Dark Destroyer from the mass removal that your opponent will inevitably be playing, because they should be smart like that. And onto a trap lineup, I'm playing quite a few traps. What I really like about this build is that it's really, really aggressive, but I've kind of cut a lot of the cards that are kind of unnecessary, I think, and made room for really, really powerful traps. So in the mirror, I find this build ridiculous and really, really effective. 2 Storming Mirror Force because it's so good in the mirror. 2 just general Mirror Force because it's somewhat subpar in the mirror, but against pretty much everything else, it's really, really, really good. 1 Solemn Warning, we're going into the one-ofs. These are just complete power traps. 1 TT, 1 Vanities, because Vanities Dark Destroyer is the most evil thing I've ever done in my life. I actually, I felt really sorry for a Shadol player. I just managed to clear their board making a Dark Destroyer, and I had a Retaliating Sea and Emptiness up. And they just kind of looked at me like I was scum of the earth, which I'm pretty sure I am. Bottomless Trap Hole and Time Space Trap Hole. Time Space obviously being really good in the mirror, and it's not too bad in main now that we don't have Necros, because this is really weak against Necros. I found like they're still getting all their effects off, and it's just subpar, but against your opponent's Dark Destroyer in the mirror, this is really, really nice because you generally don't care if your opponent's popping your monsters. Onto extra, I would be running 2 of Fortress Dragon if I had another one, because I have found that I have only, like, it's never been too urgent, but there has been times where I've been wondering, would it be possible to make a second one? Because it's such a power play being able to make Fortress Dragon. And then just some XYZs, which I haven't put in order because I'm silly. Volcasaurus, because pushing for game is still a thing. Cowboy, because Cowboy for game is a thing. Castell, just for general removal. Dweller for... well, I'm not really sure when I've actually made this recently, because obviously Shadols aren't prevalent. I mean, Burning Abyss is prevalent, but I still think they're going to be relevant in this format. But against the mirror, this is somewhat subpar because your opponent might just use trap outs as soon as you've made Dweller for your big monsters. But making Dweller and then just Dark Hole or Regeki is really nice against your opponent's board. Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon because it's a complete game maker, even though I have barely made it because this extra deck, except for Fortress Dragon, it just doesn't get used, to be honest. A Pleiades, which it used to be really nice against certain threats like Shadols, but obviously is somewhat less relevant now. And Gaia to make over Volcasaurus to push for game. Honestly, I think the most important things in this extra deck are Castell, because there will be opponent's problem cards when you can't make Slip Rider or Dark Destroyer. Volcasaurus, because it will still make game, especially through Slip Rider, that's what I found generally. And Gaia, just because you will go through the Volcasaurus, and then of course you've got the big boy, which is Fortress Dragon. Honestly, I can openly say to any person that makes this build the extra deck however you want, but just have these 4 cards in it. Like, do whatever you want. Make it 2 Fortress Dragon, 5 cards, do whatever the hell you want with the rest of it. That's honestly what I'll say. I'm not reading any 8s because why would you want to get rid of 2 Dark Destroyers to make a rank 8? That kind of thing. It's just doesn't make much sense. But yeah, totally open to the extra deck. I hope you liked this video. I've really enjoyed this deck, and I've really made some nice plays with it recently. And I think the Cyber Dragon is just really strong baiting out my opponent's big ships, and being able to push for damage through that bluff. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. I can't promise when that will be, but I'm sure there will be another one coming very soon. Hopefully I'll have some tournament reports with this deck, and I will be making changes to it over the next few months. Anyway, I will see you later. Good luck, Capcom.